Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Daniel Tisdale. I am a senior sales engineer here at Bigeye. And today I wanted to walk you through our new Agent Trust Hub platform. And really, kind of the goal of this month's webinar is targeted and kind of focused on everything around creating trust in everything that you are building with data. So the Bigeye platform, really enables data engineers, analysts, stewards to ensure that you're able to collaborate on keeping your data fresh, accurate, and trustworthy. 6 months ago, everyone was talking about deploying AI, and what they really meant was that they were just implementing AI chatbots, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Claude to really help current employees run a little faster. The true potential of AI comes from implementing AI agents at scale. So in 2025, after trying to put AI into production, 44% of AI leaders ranked poor data quality as their number one obstacles to success. Everyone is catching up to what you have known all along, that data is the foundation to good quality AI. But widespread adoption hinges on enterprise trust. So the ceiling is no longer human capacity. It is the velocity of our trust in the autonomous factory. Gartner is predicting that over 40% of agentic AI projects will be canceled by the end of 2027. And this results in a true enterprise AI trust chasm. So startups are accelerating rapidly. Large enterprises are still going through 27 committees to get access to GitHub Copilot, and a concern over poor data quality and data leakage, and a focus on low value, low risk use cases is really holding you back from being able to realize the promise of AI. So here you are, massive pressure to move fast, data is not quite ready, and a choice that is feeling ever increasingly impossible as a result. And that's where Bigeye comes in. So we have recently just introduced the Agent Trust Hub. And the Agent Trust Hub is really designed to help enterprises answer a very practical question. Can our AI agents be trusted to act on business data? Now I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Agent Trust Hub is, some of the components of it, and then we will wrap up with a few customer use cases, and then go into a live demonstration. So first and foremost, the AI Trust Hub allows you to be able to trust your agents to act on business data across your existing AI and data ecosystem. The first step is visibility. Teams need to see which connected agents are active, who is using them, what conversations are happening, and how usage is growing across the business. Without that shared view, it's very hard to manage risk, ownership, or adoption. The second step is connecting agent activity to trust signals. It is not enough to know that an agent accessed a data set. Teams need to understand whether that data is accurate, fresh, classified, governed, owned, and appropriate for the workflow. And this is where Bigeye connects agent activity to the enterprise data context behind it. And the third step is understanding the cost and expanding controls as adoption matures. As agents scale, organizations need to know which agents, users, conversations, and workflows are driving usage, operational cost, and ultimately return on investment. And then finally, when higher risk use cases emerge, they need a path into policy, runtime controls, auditability, and accountability workflows. And that really is the true value of the Agent Trust Hub. Starting with visibility, connecting activity to trust and cost signals, and expanding into deeper governance and controls as the enterprise AI program grows. So let's talk a little bit about the Bigeye AI Trust Platform, some of the components that make up the trust platform and how we've got here today. So we really believe that the next major enterprise challenge is AI trust, not just whether AI systems are powerful, but whether they can be trusted to operate on business data safely, efficiently, and accountably at scale. That's why Bigeye is building the AI Trust platform. The platform connects activity to the broader trust signals enterprises already rely on. So those include things we can see here on the screen, including data quality, governance, classification, metadata, lineage, policy, and operational cost context. And at the center of the experience is our newly introduced AI Trust Hub. So this really gives organizations a central operational view into how AI agents are interacting with enterprise data, systems, and ultimately workflows. So teams can start with visibility and insights. This really allows them to be able to understand, connected data agent usage, mapping those conversations to data access, surfacing trust and cost signals, and identifying where additional review or governance may be needed. And as organizations mature their AI programs, they can expand into deeper governance, policy, and runtime controls through the AI Guardian capabilities and connected trust workflows. The goal is really not to slow AI adoption down. It's to help enterprises scale AI with greater operational confidence. Now let's talk a bit about kind of the makeup of the AI Trust Hub. So in some cases, this is about strictly just monitoring. So giving you visibility into what agents are doing, what data they're accessing, and creating a clear audit trail. In other cases, it's about advising, alerting your teams in real time if an agent tries to use sensitive or low quality data. And for the highest risk scenarios, it's about enforcement. So automatically blocking access when an agent attempts to use data it shouldn't. So it's the same platform applied in different ways depending on that level of risk. And the key point is you don't have to choose between moving fast with AI and managing risk responsibly. With the right controls in place, you can do both. That's exactly why we built Agent Trust Hub, to support just this. Now, I wanted to run through just a few kind of examples across some of the different industries that we're working with today. The first use case is with a large organization in the oil, gas, and energy space. They saw risks within their organization, and they decided really not to move forward from an AI perspective until every control was in place. So they started building an agent gateway, putting governance and infrastructure in place before allowing agents to access any enterprise data. It makes sense, but around 6 months in, they still don't have any agents in production, and it may be another 6 or so months before they do. Meanwhile, some of their competitors are already piloting and starting to learn from the agents that they have deployed into production. And so this is the safety first path taken to the extreme, and the cost isn't just time, it's also competitive positioning. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we are working with a large equipment manufacturing company that took the opposite approach. So they went all in, self-service agent platform where around 5,000 employees can build their own agents. And they now have over 200 agents deployed and a team of over 70 people focused strictly on AI. So from the outside, it looks exactly like what most C-suites want, speed and innovation, but it also surfaced a very large challenge. So the structured data, their structured data at least, is well governed, but AI has suddenly opened up access to everything else. So that includes things such as SharePoint files, document stores, years of unclassified, unstructured data. So even though they made substantial progress, they have concerns too, and they want to put better controls in place. And lastly, a large organization within the insurance agency, they have to really think about choosing between these two approaches on one end of the spectrum or another when it comes to AI, but you actually do not have to do that. So this insurance company really kind of started out very cautiously. Everything was locked down. They had an AI council reviewing every use case, tightly controlled data access, and very limited experimentation as a result. That approach did work for a while, but pretty quickly the business started asking for more. So can we open this up to more teams? Can we connect tools like ChatGPT to our Snowflake data? A lot of users started asking for MCP access to the data sources and using GitHub Copilot before it was formally adopted. And that's the point where organizations realize they need somewhat of a different approach, one that lets them scale AI without losing control. And that's where we come in at Bigeye. So across all of these conversations, we kept hearing the same underlying challenge. Enterprises don't just need more AI, they need a way to understand whether AI systems can actually be trusted to operate on business data responsibly at scale. And so that's the next major challenge as AI moves from experimentation into operational deployment. And obviously, we don't want you to just take our word, for this. We want you to try this out for yourself. So we are offering a free trial of the Agent Trust Hub, available specifically for Snowflake users. You can sign up at the QR code right here on the screen, and this will actually allow you to be able to see, how this works in action, which is what I'll go through in the demonstration here in a minute. At a high level, it allows you to understand all of the agent connectivity, conversations, and costs associated with the various agents. It also connects any key trust signals and insights from data quality monitoring within your Snowflake environment. And all of this is provisioned and respecting your existing Snowflake permissions. And obviously, if you want to be able to expand this and connect across multiple source agent platforms and data source systems, then we'd be more than happy to help support you in a more comprehensive evaluation. So let me go ahead and kind of give you a walkthrough of the Agent Trust platform and how it operates and works. Okay, perfect. So what we're looking at here is what we call the agent registry. So in this environment here, I've got it connected to our Snowflake instance, where I can first see all of the various agents that have been built inside of the Snowflake Cortex ecosystem, with the ability to see all of the connected data sources, when those were discovered. I can also click on the data access tab. And what that's going to show me is down to a column level, how many times that specific column and table have been accessed across the various agents, as well as how many different unique agents are accessing that data. So at a top level, it gives me great visibility into the governance of just understanding who's accessing what and how many times it has been accessed. Now, let's say I want to go and kind of understand the details of a specific agent itself. So I can click on one of these agents. So I'm going to click into our Card Genie agent. And that is now going to present me with a screen where I can see all of the different conversations that have been had with this agent. Who was the user of that? What were the underlying data sources, as well as a cost associated with those various conversations. And also the ability to click into, seeing at a deeper level, just the data access for that specific agent. Now, from here, what I can do is drill into a specific prompt. So if I drill into one of these prompts here, This gives me the details of seeing the exact conversation history that the user had with that specific agent. So you can see that right up at the top, this user asked, what credit card should I recommend to Emily Thompson? So that was what the user prompted to the agent. And then right below that, you can see the actual response that the agent returned. This is an agent that helps people at a bank be able to provide better recommendations from either a credit card or a loan perspective. So it's returning the response over here on the left. And then along the right-hand pane, this is where I can see what are all the different assets that have been accessed. So an asset is, a table or a column. So we go down to that level of granularity. And so it's showing me all of the various columns that have been accessed as a result. Now we can see that one of these columns, this balance column on the accounts table, has a warning sign. So that what that is telling me is that there is some underlying data quality issue with one of the metrics that we've set up on that specific column. And one of the great things about working with Bigeye's Agent Trust Hub is right at the bottom of the response that the agent is giving us, we're seeing data quality warning. So what this is telling me is that because we've attached data quality metrics to the underlying columns and tables that this agent is accessing, the user is now being prompted and notified that there is potentially some issue with the accuracy of the response because Emily's account balance is significantly higher than a typical customer balance. So that could tell us one of two things. Either, she's a high net worth client, so we should offer premium products, or there might be an actual underlying data quality issue with that specific table there. Now let's drill into kind of understanding that specific balance column on the accounts table and see exactly what's going on there. So what I can do is come over to Bigeye and I can navigate to the catalog. That's going to show me all of the various different data schemas that I have access to, as well as the underlying tables. So here we can see under the public schema, we've got a number of different tables, all related to the bank. Now, one of those tables, the accounts table, has a underlying kind of issue with the balance itself. So when I click into the accounts table, this is where I can kind of see holistically what we call the scorecard of Bigeye. This is going to show some top level metrics around the health of that table, and we can see that there is a data quality issue on one of our maximum metrics. Now, if I click on monitoring, what that is going to show and load is the actual max value is too high for that balance column. So what this is now showing me is the day over day results of that specific balance. We have set an upper bound of $100,000, and this balance is showing well over $300,000, which is why it has now generated this issue for us, which if we go back to our conversation with the agent, this is where I can see that balance column has a known data quality issue. And so we're again just surfacing up kind of those trust signals, as a result, and prompting and essentially warning the user that there is potential for the agent to return a bad response as a result. Now, the other thing that the agents can do and how we connect the Trust Hub to the underlying capabilities of Bigeye involves being able to set up different data classification and classes on any of the columns that are touching an agent, so that if there's PII, PHI, PCI type of data, the agent can identify and surface that up to a user, as well as block the access to underlying tables and columns that have PII type of data. So what I want to jump into now is kind of talking through how we're able to classify those various elements within a table or column. And so if I go to our data sensitivity module, this allows me to see any existing scans. So we've got a few different scans set up. So if I look at this customer's PII scan and walk you through how this works, first, I'm able to select, what schema, what table, I want to include for this data classification scan and run. So I've selected the customer table. I choose the scan type. We offer, a few different options as far as how you want to scan and run that specific classification. And then one of the most critical steps here is actually picking the most relevant classifiers for this specific scan. So we're really concerned with PII data in our customer table and having that accidentally get leaked out and consumed by an agent. So what I'm able to do here, you can see we've got 40 classifiers, out of the box. Most of these are based on built-in machine learning that Bigeye has developed. I have selected these 9 classifiers as critical things that I want to make sure that the columns on that customer table do not have. Now I have the ability to filter by sensitivity level of the classifier, specific data class, or I could just drill into and say, just show me all of the classifiers that are tagged as the category of PII. So if I click on that, that'll show me there's 16 available classifiers, 9 of which are the ones that I have selected. So I've selected my classifiers. I can set this scan up to run on some sort of regular cadence and frequency, whether I want that to be some sort of time-based interval, or set up something more advanced in terms of like a cron schedule. And then from a notification perspective, I can configure different ways to get notified if there are find needs from any of those scans. Now, if I want to understand kind of the details of the scan itself and what those results were, I can click into the customer's PII scan. This is going to show all of the runs of that scan. And if I click on the aggregate tab, this is going to show me the actual results from that specific scan, column by column. So this is showing each one of these data classes and how those tie back to what sensitivity level that has been tagged as. So these are all classified as restricted, and we can see the number of rows that were scanned, as well as how many rows actually matched that specific data class. So it gives me an idea and understanding of, is there PII type of data in the columns within these various data sets. Now, one of the other things that we can see related to PII data has to do with viewing and understanding that, from a lineage perspective. So I'm now looking at that same customer table where we performed the scan of PII data. I can see each one of the columns that are tagged with that restricted sensitivity and what were the specific data classes that scan came back for. And then we can also see any sort of downstream consumption as a result. So here's a downstream view that was built off of this customer table where both first name and last name have a sensitivity level of restricted. So this is incredibly helpful from a governance perspective as agents are beginning to consume access to data, much more common than even humans nowadays. So this is super helpful when people are building agents to be able to understand not only the data quality signals, but also the data sensitivity signals that those specific columns that agents are accessing are consuming. Well, perfect. That gives everyone kind of a high level, understanding of the new Agent Trust Hub, where we're going from a governance perspective, being able to surface up all of the auditability of what a specific conversation is accessing in terms of various tables and columns, as well as understanding, if there's any sort of sensitive data that an agent might be trying to access or is accessing. And we would love to have everyone who's interested, be able to sign up for a 30-day free trial that we're currently offering, on your Snowflake environment. So any Snowflake customers have the option and the ability to sign up for this free trial, which would allow you to see all of your agents and then understand, when you're building data quality metrics on the underlying tables and columns, where there are potential issues from an agent accessing poor quality data.